Hey, how's it going, class? My name is Donovan Jordan. I want to give us my call to action speech, all right? I want to introduce my dad, James, my mom, Michelle, my other sister, Kiara. This is my last speech, and I want to, well, my specific purpose is marijuana should be legalized federally. Now, the use of marijuana should be legalized nationwide, and I think it should, well, I'm going to persuade you on the idea that the American should have his or her own choice and their own decision on taking, well, on the consumption of marijuana, comparatively speaking to other drugs like Vicodin, painkillers, opiates, Oxycontin, and like that. I want to give you what I'm going to talk about, my outline. I'm going to tell you the background, the benefits of marijuana, and why it's still legal. Now, the background of marijuana, it dates back to 7000 BC, back in China. Going towards India, years later, Europe, now America. They use the hemp plant for food, incense, cloth, rope, canvases, and much more. I mean, America's first marijuana enacted law was in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619, requiring all farmers to grow the hemp seed plant. It was for Britain at the time. It was a cash crop, but it was required. The U.S. Census in 1850 counted 8,000 hemp plantations, requiring the minimum for them to be 2,000 acres. That's pretty good, but like I said, they used them for cloth, canvases. You could write on them, other cordage for bales of cotton. Our forefathers written on the hemp plant, on the canvas alone. Now, I'm gonna take us to the 1930s. This is where Ike meets Tina, right here. This is where the Mac meets the cheese, right here, guys. In the 1930s, Harry Anslinger was in charge, well, was the man in charge of the Department of Prohibition. The alcohol prohibition was a blunder because gangsters had taken over neighborhoods, all right? Al Capone selling in his back door for the low, and nobody could stop him. So when alcohol prohibition ended, Harry was scared. All right, up until that point, he said cannabis was no problem. He said cannabis, there would be an absurd fallacy that it would be related to violence. Suddenly, his department wasn't reaching his quotas. They were not reaching their agendas. And like, if you don't do a certain job right, I mean, you're gonna get fired. So he had to change his new purpose. His new purpose was marijuana. He based that, and he really got his momentum from this one case in Florida, Victor Licata. He hacked his whole family to death, and Harry, he said that the cause was a demon weed. He said it makes you delirious in rage. He said that it'll make you erotic in character or whatever, lose the power of connected thought, reach insanity later on, running these circles, doing the same thing over and over again. I don't know what they had back in the day, but that's who was in charge. That's who's in charge. Well, now, he got his evidence from, well, it turns out he written to 30 leading scientists in the nation on the subject and asking if they were, asking if the cannabis was dangerous and should it be banned. 29 written to him, back and forth, giving their thoughts and ideas. 29 of them said no. One of them said yes. Harry picked him out and presented him to the world. In a panic that gripped America, marijuana was banned. Alright guys, the U.S. urged other countries to do the same. One country thought it was not so sound idea, Mexico. Alright, Mexico thought their drug policy should be ran by doctors. I mean, if you got somebody else that's studying a certain subject or trade, wouldn't you ask them for their advice too? Well, the medical advice that Mexico provided said that cannabis did not cause those type of problems and refused to ban it. The U.S. did not like them, and they ordered them to follow in line. Mexico held out until U.S. cut off all their trade supplies of legalized painkillers. Years later, the Victor Licata case, somebody looked at the psychiatric files and said, we'll find out that there was no cannabis use at all. That he had a mental illness in his family, and that he has been told that he should have been institutionalized a year later. I just gave you the prohibition of marijuana. I want to give you the benefits of marijuana. It creates jobs. Colorado alone, it produced in the year of 2015 $996 million in sales. 135 million going in taxes and fees. You can see the roads that we're driving in now, the infrastructure, and 35 million to going towards schools. I mean, you can ask my sister's house. They got Promethean board. I had pencils and papers growing up, so I mean that's helping the schools tremendously. Also, you save money. The scarce law enforcement now, it could be used better for public safety, reducing corrections and court costs. People get caught for minor infractions or whatever. The U.S. spends $20 billion on annually marijuana prohibition. The senior lecturer at Harvard University, Dr. Jeffrey Moran, I should say, said that if U.S. put a legal system into place, they would save at least $8 billion on government expenditures in drug enforcement. I mean, $8 billion towards veterans or education, towards building that wall we were talking about with Trump. And also marijuana promotes consumer safety. I mean, instead of using buying drugs off the road that kids do nowadays, $20 a gram, I mean, these people are telling you the strains and what the potency is on marijuana. You want a cerebral high, you get a low high. The product testing is become the standardized requirement for legalized marijuana, so it's helping the consumers out. I want to give you an example. Golden State Warriors Steve Kerr recently admitted that he used marijuana twice in the 18 months that he had to help him deal with his chronic back pain. I.e., I'm just telling you. And why it's still illegal. I have to tell you two main companies, two main agendas, two main people are really in charge, two main corporations, Big Pharma and alcohol companies. Big Farm, there's a pharmaceutical company in Arizona right now that's paid $500,000 onto lobbyists to help prevent marijuana being legalized. This shows how terrified Big Pharma is, since comparatively speaking, marijuana is a better natural alternative than other artificial drugs like Vicodin, 1,000 deaths a year, Oxycontin, 16,000 deaths a year. Prince died on Percocet. Lil Wayne's career is done. Percocet. I don't see anybody overdosing on marijuana and dying off of that. I've done some research studies on the CDC. I have not found anything yet. If you do, please send me a link. That would be awesome. Also, another example, Big Farm. You see these drug commercials that couples get together, they're running on a boat, they're having a good time, but at the end of it, you see the qualifier: suicidal thoughts, possible death. The stigma on drugs is not being described on Night and Day. It's being on marijuana, which is on relatively harmless. Now, guys, I just gave you the background of marijuana, the prohibition. It saves money. I just gave you why it's still legal today, Big Farm and alcohol companies. I think it should be legalized. It's less harmful and addictive than the other painkillers that are routinely prescribed. You should have the freedom of choice to make your own decisions. Isn't that how we get better as a human society, or better as alone as a person, through experience and wisdom? Now, my name is Donovan Jordan. This is my audience. I thank you guys.